My camera is gonna die! Hi guys, I'm Amy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the 10 strange bookish facts about me. This is a tag that's been going around for I think a little while, and I'm a little late to the party on this one, but I think it's fun. So if you guys are interested to learn a little bit more about me as a reader and my reading habits and bookish habits, go ahead and keep watching. All right, fact number 1 is that I prefer to read one book at a time. I didn't used to think that this was abnormal, but after being on BookTube, I think that is the case, at least with the BookTube community. Unless I'm doing a buddy read, I'm reading one book, and I will read that book until I finish it, and then I will pick up one other book. But like I said, unless I have a buddy read, it's just one book, and I prefer it that way. I like to be completely immersed in what I'm reading, whether it's nonfiction, fiction, any genre, you name it, the length of the book, I'm in one book. Except for if it's a buddy read and we are on a particular schedule so that we can chat about it and not spoil things for one another. So that's fact number 1. Okay, so if the frame is slightly different, that's because my camera died and I had to get my other battery. Now, on to fact number 2, which is beat up books don't bother me. The large majority of the books that I purchase are used. They come from thrift stores, used bookstores, library sales, and a lot of the books at library sales have barcodes and stamps and that kind of thing on them, potentially even water damage, and for the most part, it doesn't bother me. I will take the library covers, like the plastic cover and the barcodes off. I don't like stickers on my books, but if I can get them off, I will, but it doesn't bother me when a book is well loved. I love seeing well loved books because it means they've been read and they've kind of lived a life outside of me being the reader of that book, and that makes me very happy in a very strange way. I don't expect my books to stay pristine or even start pristine, which I think is abnormal, but like a used book just brings me a lot of joy, and I really can't completely explain why other than I like that it's been read. And fact number 3, which kind of goes along with fact number 2, is that I annotate in my books. I write in my books. I will dog-ear pages, not as a bookmark, but as I really want to come back and look at this, or that really was a favorite place. I know there are so many of you cringing out there, but I believe books should be read and loved thoroughly. And if that means that for me to do that, I'm gonna write in it, I'm gonna highlight in it, I'm gonna fold pages, then that's what I'm gonna do. And I didn't start annotating books until probably the last year or so, and I really can't wait to go back and reread books that I have annotated and loved, or even potentially disliked, because I want to give it another shot. I get so much more out of a book by interacting with it in a very explicit way, and I don't think there'll be any going back. I don't annotate every book that I read, but a large majority of the books that I read, I do write at least some things in. Fact number 4 is another one that a lot of you will cringe at, and that is that I really don't enjoy audiobooks. I've only listened to several. Well, actually, I only think I've completed one, and I've listened to most of another one, but never finished it, and not because I wasn't liking it. There's just something for me about the act of sitting down and physically reading a book. I still think listening to audiobooks is 100% reading. You get the same story out of it that I do. I don't prefer to listen to them. I would rather read it. And I think that's because I am an annotator and I do want to interact directly with the text, and that's hard to do when you're listening to it. I've tried to like them, and I try to listen to them because my husband loves them, but it's not for me. I am a physical book person, and I really don't think that's gonna change. And fact number 5 is the very odd way in which I select my next read. So once I've finished my book, obviously I'm only reading one book, so it's time to pick a new one. I pick my book out by selecting 5 books that I'm interested in reading. I then go and find my husband Aaron, and I read the description of said books to him, and then we kind of have this process by elimination thing that we do, in which he eliminates some books and then I eliminate some books, and then we're down to 2 and we each vote on which one I think that I should read. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, and if we don't agree, then I just read the one that I picked. But I just find this is a really interesting way for me to read books that I want to read in that moment, but it does push me outside of my box a little bit. It's the reason that I recently picked up Whiskey and The Child Finder, both books that I really did enjoy, but for some reason I felt inclined to read in that moment. But if I had narrowed it down myself, I definitely wouldn't have. So I think it broadens and diversifies my reading. With the books that I do have on my shelves, I don't get stuck in a rut, and it's just a really fun way. I recently did do a reading vlog in which I captured this process. I will link it up here for you guys if you're interested in seeing that, but I think that's pretty strange that I do that way, but it's always fun and interesting, and it gets Erin involved in my reading life as well, which makes me a pretty happy camper. Fact number 6, once again ties into my habit of annotating my books, is that if I come across a word I do not know the definition of, I will stop and look it up, and 99% of the time underline that word and write the definition in the margins. And there are specific words, especially in classics, that come up multiple times that I know I recognize and kind of feel like I understand, but I will look up again and write the definition again. And this is just a way for me to broaden my vocabulary and just remember them better. I've always been the type that I have to physically make notes. I still keep a physical planner, and I think just the act of writing things out just solidifies them in my brain. And so I've just carried that over into the fact that if I come across a word I don't know, I really do want to remember it, and so I write it down in an attempt to do exactly that. Fact number 7 is that I collect books, and I don't necessarily think that this is a very strange fact, especially for the fact that I'm a reader and I have a booktube channel, and the fact that all of you are probably watching because you also are a reader. But I have always specified the fact that I am not only a reader, but I'm a book lover. I love the physical book, the entity that is the book, the pages, the binding, the cover, the font, all of that. And I've always loved a physical book, and I think that is, again, ties into the fact that I don't tend to gravitate towards audiobooks because that tangible item is not there. And I obviously have a rather large library compared to most people. It's by no means the largest, but it will only continue to grow. And that includes books that I know I will read, and other books that I just think are pretty because they're antique. I have this really cool old Webster's dictionary that's just like this big. I just love the physical book. Like, the way they look on a shelf, they just bring me a lot of happy. The physical book itself, I like having books around, and I do that by collecting them. Both books that I will read, and other times just books that I think are pretty. For the most part, those are antique books that may fall apart if you do read them, but I love the book. What is a book? Fact number 8 ties into the previous book, and that is the fact that I want books in every single room in my house. I decorate with books. I want to have books everywhere because I find them comforting. I love their presence. I love the coziness that books just bring to a space by being in it. Our guest room will have books in it because I want our guests to have a book to read if they happen to be staying, and I just want to see books no matter where I look in my home. And my old home had books everywhere. This house, which we are currently still trying to settle into as far as decor and decoration, will have books everywhere when we get to that point. I don't sequester all of my books to these shelves. They are all over my house, and that makes me happy. All of these facts are about things that make me happy about books or my bookish life. There's always a theme to my videos, and sometimes I wish there wasn't, but there is. And that's the fact that having books around just makes me really happy. So I decorate with them and put them on shelves and hide them in corners, and they're just a great way to make a very, very cozy, happy home, in my opinion. Fact number 9 is that I love to read aloud. I think this ties in very much to the fact that I'm a preschool teacher because I get to do it every time I go to work. It is my favorite part of my job, is that I get to read aloud to these kids and bring these stories alive for them. I love reading. I love reading to kids. When Erin and I go on road trips, there have been many road trips in which I have read aloud to Erin and we have read stories together. I just have always really enjoyed the act of reading aloud because I think you get to share the story with other people, in which, especially because reading is generally such a solitary thing to do. It's such a solitary activity that when you read aloud, it no longer is that. That is one of my favorite parts of The Book Thief and by Marcus Zusak, and I I love that feeling that when everyone's wrapped in a story together, and I luckily get to do it all the time because I am a preschool teacher. But if you guys don't read aloud, you should definitely give it a try because it's great. It's freaking great. And fact number 10, the last fact on our list for today, is the fact that I don't have one single book that made me a reader. I know a lot of people have a book that they identify as, this book was everything to me and it just encouraged me to keep reading. I don't remember not being a reader. I don't remember not loving books. I had parents who read to us every single night. I don't ever remember them not reading to us. I had an incredible elementary school librarian who I've mentioned before that really fostered my love of reading. And I had parents who read. Books have always been a part of my life. Reading has always been a part of my life. And there have been times where I've read less, or even sometimes not at all, aka college, because you're too busy reading other things and that you don't necessarily want to be reading, but you should be reading, and I did. So I don't have that one book that I identify as a book that just really made me a reader. I've always loved books. I've always loved to read. And I used to really be disappointed by the fact that I didn't have that one thing that identified me or created me as a reader. But now upon reflection, I love that that's just always been a part of my life. That's been a constant in my life. And I hope and pray that it remains to do so, because it's something that brings me a lot of joy and makes me very happy. So on that note, those are 10 strange bookish facts about me. Let me know if you share any of these strange bookish tendencies or habits with me. I'd love to know if I am not the only one, or if you think I'm absolutely insane and don't understand how I could possibly have that be an aspect of my reading life, or just share a general fact about your reading habits / life with me. I'd love to learn more about you as well. So if you guys like this video, please like it. And if you loved it, please subscribe, and we will see you in my next video. Happy reading. All right, if the flame, I'm going to be doing the tan.